Joining us now live to break down this very momentous pick, we welcome back the bow tie, Dr. Mark Caleb Smith, Director of the Centers for International Studies at Cedarville University. Mark, good to talk to you on a day like this because, you know, in the past, Kavanaugh has more than 300 legal opinions that he has written, so people are now going through those with a fine-tooth comb. And the Democrats today, as expected, are launching a full-throated attack to try to stop this nomination, but I think ultimately in vain. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I suspect you're probably right. I think the Republicans are in pretty good shape with Kavanaugh. I think their biggest worry would have been losing some of the moderate Republican senators like Lisa Murkowski from Alaska or Susan Collins from Maine. Kavanaugh, of all the choices that Donald Trump was considering, Kavanaugh is a mainstream choice. Relatively speaking, he's somewhat moderate, and so I think those senators will recognize this is probably as good as it gets from Trump. And so I think the Republicans are in really good shape right now to push this forward.
Digging into Kavanaugh's history, they've already gone back to 2006, his hearing to be not approved as a federal judge, saying in testimony at that time, quote, that he would follow Roe v. Wade faithfully and fully. Of course, that's, you know, it's a different thing, though, when you're up to be a circuit, you know, Court of Appeals judge. When you're a U.S. Supreme Court justice, you actually, you make law. It's a different deal now.
It is a different deal altogether. It's a fair distinction. Circuit court judges are bound by the Supreme Court's precedents, at least in theory. And so if the Supreme Court decides that Roe v. Wade is the law of the land, which it still clearly is, then those circuit court judges should act accordingly. On the United States Supreme Court, though, they are not bound quite in the same way by precedent. And so that's true for conservatives on the court, it's true for liberals on the court. They don't feel quite as constricted about past decisions that the United States Supreme Court has made. And so he very well may have a different attitude toward Roe v. Wade. If he does, then I suspect we'll see that come out in the confirmation hearings.
Mark, another red flag that the Democrats have seized on almost immediately is some of these past writings by Kavanaugh saying that he favored limits on investigating the president. I mean, you know, given what's happening right now, the Democrats are, well, of course, you know, that's why Trump picked him. Your thoughts on that?
I think it's maybe it's an unfair charge in some ways. I can understand the appearance here of impropriety maybe from presumptive Justice Kavanaugh and President Trump. But you have to think through this a little bit. Remember back in the 1990s when President Clinton was under investigation and Paula Jones sued him with a civil suit, and that really did bog down his second term to some extent. And so I think what the Judge Kavanaugh was saying was the president maybe should be free from certain kinds of criminal investigations because of their potential to really drag the presidency down. That doesn't mean the president would be free from congressional investigation, doesn't mean the president would be free from potentially being impeached, but it would just mean in certain cases maybe the court should give, or Congress should give the president a little bit of latitude to face certain charges until he's out of office.
Yeah, I think he certainly faces a rocky confirmation process. I mean, he's going to face some tough questions when he goes before senators from those Democratic senators. But again, ultimately, it's a numbers game, and right now the GOP has that narrow majority, and I think he will likely be approved here in the next month or two. Mark Caleb Smith, thank you so much. Appreciate your thoughts on a big day like this. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mark.